The non-belief is incoherent omnibus. Number 17. The argument from unknowability. Premise 1. A proposition that cannot be tested, cannot be verified as true nor falsified. A statement is meaningful if and only if it is empirically verifiable or falsifiable. That is, a statement is only meaningful if there are possible empirical observations that could show it to be true or false. Premise 2. As belief claims are private mental events, they are impervious to empirical testing and, by extension, verification or falsification. As beliefs are private mental events, they are not subject to direct empirical observation, testing, and verification. Instead, all we have are fallible self-reports of individuals' subjective experience, which are prone to error due to faulty reasoning, such as biases and presumed objectivity and rationality. Further, a suspension of judgment does not equate to suspension of belief. Secondly, a suspension of judgment as an admission that one does not know the truth value of P substantiates only agnosticism, an epistemological position. It does not address belief, a doxastic position, at all, much less substantiate an absence of belief. Thirdly, whereas the suspension of judgment is an act of will, the suspension of belief presumes that one can choose what one does and does not believe, which is an extraordinary claim that requires extraordinary evidence. Premise 3. Belief can be held without conscious awareness. People can hold beliefs without being consciously aware of them. These implicit beliefs influence their thoughts and behaviors in ways they do not realize. Conclusion. Therefore, the absence of belief, even if true, is unknowable to anyone, including the subject to whom it pertains.
Let's examine the first premise. A proposition that cannot be tested cannot be verified true, nor falsified. This reflects the verification principle, which may seem reasonable at first. However, it has been widely criticized, most notably by Karl Popper, who introduced the falsification principle as an alternative. More importantly, both principles apply strictly to empirical claims about external reality, not to subjective mental states like belief. Applying them to beliefs risks conflating internal mental experiences with external, testable facts. Additionally, proposition P is left undefined, leaving the argument vulnerable to multiple interpretations. It is unclear what kinds of propositions are being rejected. Logical propositions such as all bachelors are unmarried are analytically true and require no empirical testing. This shows that not all meaningful propositions need to be empirically verified or falsified, further weakening the first premise. The author helpfully provides a quote for verification. Yet, much like the verification principle itself, I was unable to verify that this quote appears in The Logic of Scientific Discovery. This makes sense, given that Karl Popper was a critic of the verification principle, not a proponent. The quote is more accurately associated with A.J. Ayer's Language, Truth, and Logic, 1936, which states, "A statement is held to be literally meaningful if and only if it is either analytic or empirically verifiable." Thus, attributing the verification principle to Popper is a serious error that undermines the argument's foundation. Premise 2 asserts that belief claims are private mental events. This is simply incorrect. A belief claim is a public statement about one's belief, while the belief itself is a private mental state. If we amend premise 2 to say, beliefs are private mental events that cannot be empirically tested, verified, or falsified, it doesn't give the full picture. Beliefs may not be strictly beyond empirical investigation, just more difficult to study via observable behavior and cognitive research. At the very least, the author is inconsistent in including a paper that empirically measures implicit beliefs in support of premise 3, see Greenwald and Banerjee, 1995. Furthermore, premise 2 fails to distinguish between different belief states: positive belief, negative disbelief, and lack of belief. Agnosticism and non-belief often overlap. A person who suspends judgment about the existence of a God can reasonably say they lack belief. Premise 3 similarly overlooks these distinctions. The final conclusion applies unconscious beliefs selectively, focusing on non-belief while ignoring that unconscious beliefs could equally apply to belief and disbelief. If we apply premise 3 consistently, it leads to universal skepticism about all belief states. Positive beliefs become unknowable due to possible unconscious doubts. Disbelief becomes unknowable due to possible latent background beliefs. Non-belief becomes unknowable for the same reason. If unconscious beliefs undermine non-belief, they must undermine all belief states equally. This premise misunderstands that a lack of belief is not a claim to perfect awareness of one's mental state, it is simply the absence of a conscious belief in P or not P. The author cites Greenwald and Banerjee's 1995 paper on implicit social cognition, which argues that beliefs can exist outside conscious awareness and still influence behavior. As previously stated, this contradicts Premise 2's claim that beliefs are entirely private and unverifiable, as implicit beliefs can be studied empirically. Also, this exact quote doesn't appear in the paper. The idea may align with the research, but failing to verify an exact quote weakens the argument's credibility even further. In summary, the argument fails under scrutiny. Premise 1 misapplies the verification principle to mental states. The quote's incorrect attribution further undermines its foundation. Premise 2 is flawed, as it mischaracterizes belief claims and ignores the empirical study of unconscious beliefs. Premise 3 and the conclusion apply unconscious belief inconsistently, leading to universal skepticism rather than exclusively challenging non-belief. Taken together, the argument's logical inconsistencies, selective reasoning, and questionable sourcing render its conclusion unsound.